And in today's video, I want to talk about how sports and fashion for the longest time have been intertwined, and specifically in today's date, fashion has been taking influence from sports from all the different directions possible. So, the history of sports and fashion goes all the way back to the 19th century, where sportswear was considered any piece of clothing that was specifically designed to play that particular sport. And as we move towards into the 20th century, which had informal elements of sportiness through their design elements, etc. And post World War II, we later came into the stage where sportswear sort of became like athleisure, where it could be worn at any point in the day. For the longest time, fashion has taken inspiration from sports and obviously vice versa. But we started seeing this particular trend in the late 2000s, specifically post the 2020 period. And there are certain sports which also contributed for this to happen, specifically on a global scale. Now, obviously, cricket is one of them, but this is more, applicable to the Indian subcontinent. But if I were to look at sports on a more global scale, it was tennis, motorsports racing, and even basketball for that matter. So when tennis began back in the 1800s, it was a sport that was considered more of a performance rather than an actual sport. It was seen as the symbol of elegance, purity, and back then, tennis players specifically had very restrictive sort of a clothing or a uniform, you want to call it, or an attire for the particular sport. You could, for men, it was crisp white shirts with collars, and for women, it was those long skirts which reached all the way down. Imagine playing tennis and wearing long skirts and trying to run. But that was the whole point. The whole point of tennis back in the day had to meet with the societal expectations of purity, elegance, and kind of social elite classes that could only afford to, spectate the game or even participate in the game. Okay, as the sport became more competitive over a period of time, the brands and the players had to improvise, which meant since the game is more competitive, no more long skirts touching all the way till your ankles, or restrictive clothing, which was earlier very prevalent in this game, did not really make sense. And that is when we saw a shift in the whole fashion and the uniform aspect of it, where the clothes for a tennis player then made by lighter fabrics such as cotton, and Ralph Lauren made the move in that space to make sure that the clothes are maybe a little shorter, they're not restrictive, they're more breathable. Between fashion and performance, and Ralph Lauren and Coco Chanel were one of the two first people to make note of this and enter into this space, and also kind of give it their own touch to the uniforms. Just like any other sport, as the relevance was rising, you obviously saw superstars rise out of that game. Bjorn Borg, Steffi Graf, all of these players, they brought in the culture of pop and mixed it with tennis. So back in the 2000s, you would see a lot of pop of color on the court, which was not really synonymous with the all white uniform that tennis was associated with. And then came in Puma and Nike and even Lacoste, making sure that these brands kind of capitalized on the ever changing landscape that tennis was now looking at post the 2000s. Athleisure and a mix of cleaner silhouettes, more sleeker silhouettes, and more experimentation in terms of the kind of clothes that were coming out and seen on court. And fast forward to today, now if you see tennis, it is a mix of really high performance athleisure wear, high performance accessories that are going around, and also the runway fashions, which have been incredibly inspired by this particular sport. Collaborations with Miu Miu, with Rolex obviously being one of the brand ambassadors, always since years for Wimbledon. Okay, this might be my favorite one, and that is Formula One. I've been into Formula One since very recently, so don't come at me in the comments about the details and everything. I'm here to talk about the fashion perspective of it. LVMH, if you don't know, recently did a multi-year contract with Formula One to invest over $1 billion. 1950s, when this particular sport started, at the time we did lose a few of the legends due to car crashes, which were very common. So fashion at that time was not really a major concern, survival was. And it went all the way to leather jackets, making overalls for drivers which would help them survive in case a fire breaks out in the car, goggles, really solid helmets, even for the pit crew who was there. So back in the day, the sport was about survival, not about fashion. So now as Formula One started to pick up the pace, obviously like any other sport, the brand started noticing. And also Formula One is one of those sports which attracts a lot of attention from the kind of people who enjoy a very adrenaline driven sport, which most of them are. But this has to do more with speed, it has more to do with your reflex, the danger that is associated with the sport, which is very true. And that is when a lot of collaborations came in back in the 1950s and in between the 1960s from brands like tobacco brands. You had Marlboro plastered all over the cars. You had John Player, again, like a tobacco company, which associated and invited that sort of sponsorships, which was very fundamental to the brand. Drivers like Senna, Michael Schumacher, as and when these people rose to fame and started gaining a cult following, not just from the places where the races were being held, but all over the world. Naturally, the sport gained traction. There was sponsorship, there was brand ambassadors and investors, and just the fact that it streamlined the entire sport. The sports team started to have more uniforms which were more cohesive, and that fast forward to today we see on runways entire collections being inspired by leather jackets, leather overalls, even helmets, more aerodynamic, sort of very high performance wear, accessories, helmets, watches, anything that has to do with precision, accuracy, speed. Every team now has their own merchandise, and in fact, forget the teams, even the drivers have their own cult like following and merchandise, even private brands. A lot of Formula One drivers have their own personal brands as well. So yeah, that is how Formula One has kind of translated into going from survival to attracting everything that has to do with speed, fashion, expressive and bold, loud colors, and for people who enjoy the thrill of adrenaline. The rise of basketball began with footwear. Back in the 1960s and 80s, basketball uniforms were very laggy, very not very flowy, kind of heavy, did not allow for a lot of movement, but that was not the thing that kind of rose basketball to fame. It was the Converse's all-star Chuck Taylor's sneakers. Chuck Taylor's, who was a semi professional basketball player, when he endorsed those particular sneakers, that is when the rise of footwear and the importance of footwear, of course, Jordans, started shining in the world of basketball. Then came brands like Nike, Puma, and also the collaboration of One of a Kind with Jordan and Nike came into existence. With the rise of Michael Jordan and Allen Iverson in the streetwear culture specifically, along with the hip hop vibe that goes around and is often synonymous with basketball, there was a rise not just with the footwear but also the street style culture, which was very prevalent. Oversized jerseys and very baggy pants, those were then translated into a lot of fashion that you can see in the music industry, specifically rap as well, which was also inspired quite a lot by street style. If you're a female viewer of a particular sport, or you got into watching a particular sport because of a wife or the girlfriend of a very famous sports personality, you're not alone. You're not alone. I've been there, done that, and you're not alone. Wags have contributed to the rise of fashion in a lot of sports. During the rise of the wag culture back then, there was a lot of negative connotation associated with the wives and the girlfriends of the particular players or the racers, following them everywhere. And it was often associated with the fact that a lot of the particular females were only associating themselves with the players for the rise of their particular fame, etc., blah blah blah, and also accompanying them to maybe, I don't know, like a wag trying to support her partner was somehow not seen in a positive light, specifically before a very big tournament or the D-Day. But that culture and that wave has thankfully changed, and now wags are kind of seen as the walking advertisements for a lot of brands, because brands understand that it's not just the player who's already a big name in the particular sport, it is also their wife or their girlfriend whose name is attached to that person. And they are also kind of showcasing everything that has to do with fashion. Honestly, the influencer sphere is changing in a way that anything that is allied to a particular sport is now the way that brands are reaching out to explore and spread the word of their particular brand. But sports and fashions all in all has been a very immersive experience. It's not just anymore related to the kind of clothes you're wearing, it is also associated to the kind of cult or the culture that, or a particular subculture that a fan may be trying to associate themselves with. And all of that drives the whole engine of how fashion has been immersively trying to, I don't know, sometimes invasively try. Personally, I feel a lot of sports have become so commercialized that the fashion aspect and the commercialization and of the kind of people and the celebrities and the kind of other audiences that they have been attracting sometimes overpowers the sport that is being played. So I feel in the future there needs to be a strike or a balance in terms of less over commercialization of sports and more focus on what the sport actually is. So these are my thoughts on fashion and sports and how they've kind of come together over a period of time. This is a very intricate and a very history driven sort of a subject, which I would love to talk about more in my coming videos. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.